Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farrukh Pitafi. Once again, we are going to talk about domestic politics because it is very important. Many things are happening. One very interesting development is regarding EVMs. If you remember, we covered the topic and we discussed the merits of the issue in detail the day before yesterday. But then there is a matter of interaction between the Election Commission of Pakistan, the Senate's Standing Committee on these matters, and then of course Government of Pakistan. So what happened in the intervening period is that the Senate Committee rejected the whole proposal, and that was primarily because of the Election Commission of Pakistan. So today the Election Commission of Pakistan and their staff actually walked out of the meeting as well, and later on we saw a presser from the Federal Information Minister, advisor on the Parliamentary Affairs, and Azam Sawati Sahab as well. And what was told in that presser? We were told that in coming days, the government is going to convene a joint session of the Parliament, and the Chief Election Commissioner is basically speaking the language of the opposition. Now that actually shows you that there might be some kind of confrontation brewing up, because Parliament is also divided. We know that it is more or less a hung Parliament. We are going to talk about all these matters, and before I introduce the guest, let me read certain statements from the various influentials, and then we are going to talk about it. There is another component that I'm going to introduce in the second half of the program, and that is about PDM. But right now, let me read the statements that are there. Election Commission acting like opposition's headquarters, says Chaudhry Fawad, who is a Federal Information Minister. PMLN leaders making amendments regarding use of EVM controversial, Chaudhry Fawad. Then Chief Election Commissioner working as mouthpiece of the opposition. Again, this is attributed to the Federal Information Minister as well. Parliamentary Committee tried to bulldoze government and government's proposal, Babar Awan. Parliament's joint session will be convened on September 13th. Once again, Babar Awan. And one more quote of his: government decide to introduce bills in Parliament joint session. Babar Awan once again. So we are going to talk about all these matters in order to help us understand these issues. We are joined by Zamir Haider, who is a senior journalist. Actually, his graying hair actually tell you about his seniority now. Zamir Haider, thank you very much for being part of
my pleasure, Pitafi.
Arif Chaudhry Sahab is also joining us via telephone, who is a legal expert. Also a constitutionalist. Arif Chaudhry Sahab, thank you very much for being part of the program. I was told that the two politicians are also going to join. I don't know whether they are with us, or not. But let me start with the two guests here in the studio. One guest in the studio and then on the phone, and then we are going to move forward. Zamir Haider, is some kind of confrontation brewing in Islamabad?
If it was not brewing, after today's presser by the three ministers, I think there is going to be a lot of confusion, the confrontation, and as you said, that it might lead to some constitutional crisis. If
I didn't say constitutional crisis. I said confrontation.
No, but I think it might lead to that point as well, because if the government tries to push it, as you have just told that the Babar Awan Sahab has said that they are going to, come what may, they are going to bring it in the Parliament by convening a joint session. And if the opposition doesn't agree, and Election Commission of Pakistan doesn't subscribe to what the government is trying to do, they might take this to the Supreme Court as a
Right.
constitutional petition.
Right.
And that would be a point where I think
we can say that there might be some constitutional crisis. But very quickly, before I go to other guests, let me ask you, the idea of EVMs has been there for quite some time. In fact, the first prototype of the current machines is 10 years old. That means at least the two opposition parties, that is People's Party and then PMLN, at least when it comes to the idea, are on board. So why is it that all these parties and then ECP are taking up this issue as something which is really, really bad?
Well, for opposition, I would say they are trying to do opposition for the sake of opposition. If at
And
all,
ECP?
ECP, I think they are a bit confused as far as the technical issues are concerned
Okay.
in this EVM. And I was informed by someone that Election Commission of Pakistan, the one you have mentioned, the prototype thing, when it was conceived, then they at that point also they raised some concerns,
Right.
and they are still valid till today. So that is the reason why Election Commission of Pakistan is raising all these concerns,
Right.
the technical concerns.
They raised 37.
More of them, yeah. Out of 37, Shibli Faraz Saab said that 27 were of capacity issues.
Their own concerns,
their
not
own
the
concerns,
machines.
but the rest of the 10 are all purely technical issues.
Right. Arif Chaudhry Saab is with us. Arif Chaudhry Saab, let me ask you about two aspects. One, the government, especially the ministers who were speaking today, very clearly were pointing out that they don't have faith in the Chief Election Commissioner, and there was this implication that he should step aside. If he doesn't, this is going to create quite a situation. So what remedy exists in the Constitution and in the law? The second thing about EVMs, government seems to have gone to the joint session route, and there's a possibility that it might actually be able to do something about it there. Do you think it is going to solve the problem, or it is going to create further problems?
Doctor, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to respond to the first part of your question, and that is regarding way out in case of any problem such as arisen with the Chief Election Commissioner. Because I think the government or anyone else whosoever has any objection against the Chief Election Commissioner, the way forward is to go and move to the Supreme Judicial Council, and the way to the modus operandi to get away with the Chief Election Commissioner is to through that reference, judicial reference, and any member for that matter, and that is the same process which is used for any judge of the High Court or judge of the Supreme Court. Here, I think, the government should not have gone to that extent, particularly the ministers. Whatever objections and whatever reservations they had, if they had any, proper proof, they should have moved the Supreme Judicial Council. Otherwise, just raising these things, before media and saying that, let it be put on fire, this institution, that doesn't seem to be be becoming of a minister and representing the government. Yeah. So as far as the government is concerned, if they really want to move forward, because first of all, we must try to understand that this is not a new law as far as EVM is concerned. Law already exists. And as you mentioned, maybe for 10 years. And the way was, the instruction to the Election Commission was that they have to pave a way for implementing this, EVM method of voting. But they had their reservations, but basically if the capacity is the issue, that is precisely, upon them, on their shoulders, Election Commission. Because it is not the government who has to use, take these machines. It is the Election Commission. who has been asked, with this duty, this obligation to, terrorize the election and conduct the election through EVM. And the third part of your, the third part of your,
before you go to the second part,
yeah.
sir, I just wanted to understand why is it that the Constitution and the law makes it so difficult for any government or even the parliamentary process to remove these officials. I'm talking about Chief Election Commissioner, then we also know about Chairman NAB. There are many institutions of this sort whose heads it seems that it is very difficult to remove, and one has to invariably end up in Supreme Judicial Council. The concern is that these might be autonomous institutions, but they are not essentially judicial institutions.
Yeah, but that is true. But if you consider these institutions pivotal, and that is true, that the onerous job they perform, that involves lot of implications, lot of criticism, and each time any one of the parties or both parties get offended and they have their own grievances. And if you just allow them, in a slipshod manner, so no one would be, able to perform his duties in accordance with law, because every one of these institutions shall always remain under fear of being removed. And and any complaint can be very damaging for those officials. So that's why they have been given a sort of security, that they should feel secure, that it's not that easy that anybody takes Tom and Harry, whosoever feels offended and simply makes
I understand,
gives an application.
I understand that concern. My concern was that this could have been safeguarded through the Parliament. Rather, it ended up with Supreme Judicial Council, which doesn't seem to be an elected body, and which, of course, is quite independent, right? And it becomes quite difficult.
No, that is the best way. I don't disagree to that point, because Parliament, that was the securest way, and that was both parliamentary way and judicious way. But anyhow, so far, the answer of your question is that, in order to secure that tenure, this has been provided that Supreme Judicial Council shall be,
I understand, and Arif Chaudhry Sahab, I have to thank you here. Thank you very much for your precious time. I'm joined by Ghazala Saifi Sahiba, who is MNA of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. She joins us through Skype. Thank you very much, ma'am, for being part of the program. And Rana Ehsan Afzal Khan, leader, a young leader of Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, also joins us on Skype. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Ma'am, I have to start with you. Why is it that the government is so, aggressively pursuing this matter? There must be a lot of merit in what government is saying, but then opposition also keeps on saying that it is not being heard.
Well, thank you, Dr. Pitafi, for calling me in this program. And as far as the government is concerned, government is really meaning it to bring an electoral reform in Pakistan before the elections happen, which are just 2 years away from now. And Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf government is committed to bring that kind of a change for the betterment of people, and with a vision of providing better solutions for the election results that we usually see in a chaos and in a difficult, the party, whoever is in power has to face the difficulty of choosing the wrong polling stations and whatsoever, and a lot of other obstacles come in between. So it was
I get that. Ma'am, I get that. I understand that the government has a very good rationale for this idea. But the problem is it is a parliamentary democracy, and it has to have institutions as well. When opposition doesn't seem to be playing ball, when Election Commission also objects to it, is it not advisable to take a step back and start working with others so that there is a consensus?
Well, as far as aggressiveness is concerned, I do not believe in being aggressive about a point of view, about a vision, about something which we plan for the future of our country. So there shouldn't be that kind of an aggressiveness, but yes, if we feel that if this is a solution, that is a futuristic solution for the people of Pakistan, then, and we have also asked the opposition parties to come up with their own recommendations as far as electoral reforms are concerned. And electronic system of voting is one of the things, not entirely on that will we rely, but then you see, if the opposition parties are not willing to even listen and to actually comprehend what is the situation which is going to come up in the future elections, then it is something of a question mark and something questionable. Even if election commission should also not be going against the demands of the people, because this is not just Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, as I've told you repeatedly in different programs.
Right, but the concern of course is there that your party perhaps needs to learn a lot to work with others as well. Let me bring in Rana Ahsan Afzal Khan also. Rana sir, usually we hear your party actually very clearly speaking about things, but it doesn't seem that much clear on EVM. What are the concerns that you have that so far are creating so much problem?
Well, currently our concern is that when the ECP brought about those 37 objections on EVM, the sitting minister responded that, the ECP should be set on fire, and he accused the ECP of taking bribery and taking bribery and called them thieves. So, two things have happened.
With due respect, hang on. You're not talking about EVMs. My question was about EVMs, not the government. I understand what the government did, what ministers were doing, but what are the key concerns of your party about EVM?
Sir, this is a key concern currently. You cannot, skip this. It is a concern that ECP, which is an autonomous body, and the election commissioner, which has the same ranking of a high court judge, has been accused of taking bribery. He has been called a thief, and the autonomous body should be set on fire. This is the concern. And if the government is going to act in such a manner for an institute which is supposed to implement, is the biggest stakeholder and, hold the election, this is the biggest concern. And it shows the agenda of the government that instead of responding to those objections, the government decides to bully the ECP. And
that is something that your party has repeatedly pointed out, but at this moment also, earlier you were seeing the machine which is EVM, and which actually shows that it actually can contain all the results the way they were supposed to. What is the technical concern of your party?
So the technical
I'm sure that your party members have seen the machine because it was there during your time as well.
Okay, so the technical concern is that the government has nothing to do with the selection of the machines or, bringing this about. It has no mandate. In a similar manner, if you allow PPP, then they will also bring a machine. PMLN can also bring a machine. It's not the mandate of the government. It's not the mandate of the science ministry. It's the mandate of ECP. You give them a law. There is the Election Act.
Sir, ECP cannot manufacture machines, right? There'll have to be some kind of a prototype, so we have to talk about that as well. Do stay with us, Rana Ahsan Afzal Sahab, as well, very patiently. Zamir Haider has been waiting for his turn. You have listened to all the views from all across. What do you make of it?
Well, first thing first, when you asked Ghazala Safi Sahiba and she was saying like, this is our, plan and this is what we want to do. We have been hearing this. That's good. There's nothing wrong with that. But my point is that why the government has annoyed ECP. They could have only engaged with the technical department or IT department of the ECP and threadbarely discussed all the technical issues and primarily, I would say that. Primarily, Pitafi. I would come to the
because you are you are going to be our independent commentator. Let me ask you another thing. I understand everybody is talking about the government. Let me ask you about the ECP's own conduct as well. ECP office bearers walking out of a standing committee's meeting. Have you ever heard about such examples in the past?
Well, look, it was not only Election Commissioner of Pakistan, blamed, but it was the whole Election Commission of Pakistan. ECP was blamed for siding with the opposition, taking bribery from the opposition and becoming the spokesman. So what do you expect from an autonomous body to do at that very point? When they are being labeled as that they are no more autonomous, they are taking side with the opposition. So what do you expect the ECP to do? To walk out. So what would they do?
It's a political charge.
It's a political thing. I understand that. But my point is that why didn't the government allow ECP to flood international tenders and ask the world reputed companies to help them out and make a prototype, or they can show this prototype to the international companies or some Pakistani private independent companies who can manufacture EVM, electronic voting machine, purely sponsored by the ECP, purely funded by they could have given money to the ECP. They're okay, this is what we want.
Money, hang on.
You go for international tenders. You go for international tenders and or local tenders and hire some companies which are and then all the political parties can have their IT experts and observe that machine.
Zamir Haider, is it something that Election Commission is even proposing right now? At this moment, the 37 points are primarily about the timeline, that it cannot be done, right?
Yes, but the government can suggest, the government can request ECP. Is there any harm in doing that? Look, if you don't agree to this prototype of thing, this is a model, this is a prototype. You go for tenders for the reputed companies to come in and manufacture EVM for them.
Election Commission goes for it, right?
Yes,
it can still go for it.
They have got a technical department, they have got an IT department.
They can still go for it.
Furthermore, just quickly on the opposition side, I know Senator Afnanullah. He has a tremendous experience of IT. And why doesn't the government engage him and tell him like, okay, you pinpoint the things which you say that this EVM is not acceptable.
Look, you understand. You are yourself an anchor. You're yourself an anchor. You understand that when I'm going to argue with you, it is primarily to do my job, right?
Yes, of course.
Just to get the best arguments out of you. And the concern at this moment is that today Babar Awan was saying that out of the rebuttals that they had to actually give for 37 points, the chair of the standing committee did not allow to move beyond first 5. So that becomes a problem. And then Dr. Afnan was sitting there. Others are sitting there. They are supposed to point out what are the problems. The machine is there. So it seems to be some kind of conflict which is going to grow.
Look, this is what the opposition. This is what the opposition normally do. Do you think that they would agree to anything like that, which is being sponsored and coming from the government side? No.
I tell you what, I haven't seen.
Let the ECP.
I haven't seen an ECP walking out. I haven't seen a government behaving in this manner. So these are very unique times. I'm told that we have to take a break, viewers. When we come back, we are going to address the second part of our discussion today, that is the opposition's own politics. Why is it so divided? We are going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to continue with this panel and get another guest also. Take a break.
The fissures in the Pakistan Democratic Movement are now apparent. Instead of putting up a combined opposition against the government, the country's three major opposition parties have turned on each other. The members of Pakistan Democratic Movement hold each other responsible for the fault lines that have emerged within itself and covert support of the governing Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. It all began with Bilawal Bhutto Zardari's lashing out on PMLN for not supporting the no-confidence motion against Chief Minister Osman Buzdar in the Punjab Assembly. The president of the PDM, Maulana Fazlur Rahman, responded that it was in fact the PPP which had caused irreparable damage to the opposition's anti-government movement. While addressing a press conference, he had said that the PPP stabbed the opposition in its back. Faisal Kareem Kundi, the Information Secretary of the Pakistan People's Party, responded by blaming Fazlur Rahman for damaging the PDM for the sake of saving himself from NAB prosecution. PMLN leader Shahid Khaqan Abbasi downplayed the statement of Bilawal by saying that his statement did not deserve a comment. These statements came a day before the PDM Executive Committee's meeting was scheduled in Islamabad. In a presser held today, Fawad Chaudhry said that the Election Commission was acting like the opposition's headquarter. He further added that the MLN leaders were making electronic voting machines amendment controversial. Fawad Chaudhry added that the PTI invited opposition to discuss electoral reforms. The Supreme Court had also ruled in favor of the use of technology to ensure transparency in polls. Now it seems highly unlikely that the opposition might be able to put their differences aside. However, politics is not as predictable as it seems. It remains to be seen what the future holds for the political scenario of Pakistan.
It sounds surreal, doesn't it? Only 1 year ago we were talking about PDM and how big a challenge it can prove to be. Now at this moment it seems that the opposition is the biggest threat to itself. We saw what Bilawal Bhutto Zardari said in Rahim Yar Khan, and then Maulana Fazlur Rahman as well. One doesn't know who realizes who has too much skin in the game, but at this moment it seems that two major parties, that is PMLN and People's Party, they are hell-bent on fighting among themselves. Can they unite? Is there a possibility that they unite? And not only that, what about the unity within the parties? We look at PMLN, we know that there are at least three voices which are coming from the party and they contradict each other. So which one is the real voice? Let me go back to PMLN's representation here. Rana Saab, let me ask you, is there a possibility that all the opposition parties can unite again, work together? Is there a possibility that your party can unite as well? The two houses, the houses of two brothers, Shahbaz Sharif and Nawaz Sharif, can unite and actually pose a challenge to the government? Or it is just a pipe dream? Please go ahead.
I think the opposition parties are united under the umbrella of PDM, except for People's Party and ANP, and there is a very logical reason behind it, as one of our main points in the PDM is that we want the constitution to be implemented as it is, and then we do not want any interference of any institutes where they're not allowed to, and they should work in the mandate given to them by the constitution. So when People's Party went for the leader of opposition seat in defiance with the PDM's decision, or without consultation with the PDM's decision, and went underhand and compromised those principles by making a deal with the BAP, which is known to take dictation from a certain institute. So that was, it violated what PDM stood for, which is that we don't want any deals, and we're not waiting for any, empire to hold his finger up. So that was the issue.
I really respect your retelling of the entire history and your version of it. But my question was whether People's Party and PMLN can work together, because it is a parliamentary democracy. In the parliament, you have to have number game. Certainly, all the opposition united has lesser numbers than the government. Otherwise, you would have been in power. The question now is whether the two major opposition parties can work together, and whether the very clear divide within your party can be overcome as well. Can you give me an answer to that as well?
Of course. So in the parliament, we are going together, and if there is anything, against the government in the parliament, we will be working together. So that is clear. But at the platform of PDF, we have decided to move ahead, and maybe, it's nothing written which cannot be changed, but currently that is the stance where we are. For example, when we're, for the ECP members, we are working, we are in touch with each other, we are in conversation, but when you, even for the vote of no confidence in Punjab, we have said to the People's Party that if they have a certain formula for going ahead with it, we are open to it. But as of yet, we have not been given any recommendation how to go about it, because currently we need 186 votes in the Punjab Assembly to overturn Buzard government, and we don't have them. Our cumulative votes for People's Party and PMLN stand at 165. So we're open to that, and our recommendation to People's Party is that we should start with the Senate, because that is where the opposition has a majority. And if they want to go for vote of no confidence, that is the area where we should begin with. So we're open to that as well.
Right. So basically, even if you have numbers, you are not that much interested in bringing about change in Punjab. This is the accusation that People's Party has.
There is a reason behind it.
Before I come back to you, sir, I have to actually go to other guests as well. And Zamir Saab, I will be coming back to you, but first, let me bring in Azala Saifi Sahaba. Azala Saifi Sahaba, your party on one side, it seems, is very lucky, your government, that you have got one of the worst oppositions possible. They have got huge number in the parliament, but they don't seem to unite. But at the same time, you could have benefited from their lack of unity. It doesn't seem that you are actually bowing any side. You are not reaching out to the Shehbaz Sharif wing of PMLN. People's Party keeps on, continues its virtue signaling, and you are not even reaching out to them. Otherwise, issues like EVM could easily have been resolved. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Yes, there could not be a compromise as far as bringing in the other party members in, because the parties themselves are so disintegrated by themselves, they are so divided within their lines. Not only the party themselves, but the parties within the PDM cannot coexist, as their DNA does not match, and they have never had anything that could have worked together, and that makes, after all the havoc they wanted to create, which they could not, and we knew they will never be, they have now started to bifurcate within the lines as well. So the important thing here is that a lot of important things have to be sorted by the government, but the opposition parties individually and along with the rest of them, if they want to align, will have to come up and help the people of Pakistan, if not the government of Pakistan. And the government of Pakistan is making a
hang on
very
a minute.
serious effort
I understand.
to unite
And,
the opposition.
but we have heard this answer many a times. My question is very clear. You could have reached out to any faction of opposition and gotten all the laws that are pending passed by the parliament. Why is it that your party hasn't managed to do it? We heard of a breakthrough when the Prime Minister wrote a letter to Shehbaz Sharif regarding Election Commission and NAB. But we haven't seen anything beyond that. What does it take for a Prime Minister to just pick up a telephone set and call the opposition leader?
Well, I think it is important now to call in the opposition as well, and make them sit on a table and make them realize that this is the time when you have to actually think seriously about the future of this country and about these important issues. These are not just the issues of the government, these are the issues of the opposition and the people of Pakistan. So they will have to now bring their mind to that kind of consent, where they will have to sit down on the table with the government. The initiative obviously will be taken by the government, but whenever the government has tried to approach them, they try up with something new, which completely comes up as a surprise to actually, they plan to demolish the government, which they have not been able to do so. So now the sensibility prevails, and the sensibility asks them to be sitting on the table with the government.
I understand that. My concern is that if you want to reach out, I don't think anybody is going to refuse to be in contact and try to help out. Let me come back to Zamir Haider again. If theoretically speaking, hypothetically speaking, if the government reaches out to the opposition regarding these constitutional appointments, which are very important, do you think that the opposition will be open to the idea?
Well, before coming to me, you said that if at all the government would try to approach,
and that's a big question.
They would respond positively. That's what I gathered when you said, because I don't know who will approach them from the government side. Then this is again, don't play with the question. I was asking her that there is a chance. There is a chance.
But I'm asking your analysis.
Yes.
Whether the response is going to be good.
Probably when you were saying that if the government would try to approach certain factions in the opposition, Shehbaz Sharif and People's Party, because they have shown some kind of what do you call that? I don't want to go into that details, but anyhow,
difference of opinion within their own
they have shown some flexibility, and they can be approached. Now the problem is that other day I was reading this Maulana Fazlur Rahman's statement that he would suggest and try to convince Mia Nawaz Sharif that we should boycott the elections if the electoral reforms are pushed by the government and they are in the joint session, and if they are there.
How many seats?
Pakistan People's Party has said it many a times that they have done this mistake once and they would not do it again in 1985. So they would not subscribe to this suggestion or even think about it.
Right.
But now Maulana says that because it's a lot of kind of very closeness we are witnessing between Maulana Fazlur Rahman and Mia Nawaz Sharif, not Mia Shehbaz Sharif.
Right.
So there is a clear difference. I don't see any reason for the government that they should be approaching the opposition.
Why not? It is part of the constitution.
No, I understand.
They have to appoint members of ECP. They have to appoint head of NAB.
NAB, exactly. They both have the constitution says that they have to have a consultation on the names, certainly.
don't have to write letters, they can call.
But writing letter is equally good, but like, you know...
They're sitting in the same house, it is parliament.
So I think you are suggesting that Prime Minister should walk to the leader
call
of the
them over.
opposition or call them over. There's nothing wrong in that. They're like, you know, I think they should. But my point is that at this time, opposition is actually, you know, trying to make their own points individually.
Okay.
Be it PDM, they're saying that they're together in PDM minus ANP and Pakistan People's Party, but within PDM, everyone is trying to get some share of its own by, you know, maneuvering or things or like, you know, playing good cop, bad cop or whatever.
Everyone is sitting in the same boat, but trying to paddle in a different direction.
Different direction.
Okay.
So here is the point, here lies the difficulty for the government. You know, if they want to approach a leader of the opposition for, as the constitution says, that for certain appointments they have to, but the opposition stands divided, and the second largest opposition party is Pakistan People's Party.
It is a godsend to the government. This decision is good for the government.
Made use of it so far.
Right.
This is the problem.
I have to. I'm told that we have to actually start concluding. I have one very quick question for Rana Ehsan Afzal, and Rana Sahab, that is about what Bilawal Bhutto Zardari has been saying, that your party was saying that it wants to resign. Now, why are you not resigning from the parliament?
Well, you know, PMLN are not fools. We wanted to resign, so the setup could get wrapped
You
up.
said fool or cool?
Fools.
Okay.
Fools.
Okay, cool, okay.
And the reason that we wanted to resign so the setup could get wrapped up. And if we resign alone, that target would not be achieved. It would have been achieved if all the opposition would have resigned together. So we do not want to support the government. We want to, you know, get rid of this government. So it's simply because of that.
Can I ask Rana Sahab, the vote of confidence, bringing vote of no confidence?
That's a very good idea, but I am told that we have run out of time. So, Zameer Haidar Sahab, thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Ghazala Safi Sahaba, it is always great having you in the show as well. You keep on calling me a doctor. I'm not a doctor, but thank you very much for honoring me. Rana Ehsan Afzal Sahab, thank you very much for your precious time as well. Viewers, this was today's program. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.